Jayo Vipad Paramahansa Parivijagacharya Astatara Satasi Simad, His Divine Grace, A.Z. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Oh, look at that. Where was it? Hidden.
Studying readings.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 25, 3-25. This is Shaunaka asking questions of Sutta Goswami after having narrated what Maharaj Parikshit asked and Sukadeva Goswami answered. So it's like a narration within a narration. Shaunaka is the speaker, speaking to Sutta. The process of achieving perfection through Harikatha, topics of Krishna, and in contrast, not wasting valuable human life, but using it properly, that was Shaunaka speaking. Now, O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee Shukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Look at this at the end of the chapter. Purport. Knowledge explained by the previous acharyas like Shukadeva Goswami and followed by the next like Sutta Goswami is always powerful transcendental knowledge and is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. That's the end of chapter 3, beginning of chapter 4. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, after hearing the speeches of Shukadeva Goswami, which were all about the truth of the self, applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Krishna. Purport. The word satim is very significant. This means existing, and chaste. And both imports are perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. The whole Vedic adventure is to draw one's attention entirely unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna without any diversion, as instructed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Fortunately, Maharaj Parikshit had already been attracted to the Lord from the very beginning of his body in the womb of his mother. In the womb of his mother, he was struck by the Brahmastra atomic bomb released by Ashwatthama, but by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from being burnt by the fiery weapon. And since then, the king continuously concentrated his mind upon Lord Krishna, which made him perfectly chaste in devotional service. So, by natural sequence, he was a chaste devotee of the Lord. And when he further heard from Srila Shukadeva Goswami that one should worship the Lord only and no one else, even though full of all desires or desire less, his natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. We have already discussed these topics. Paragraph. To become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, two things are very much essential. Namely, having a chance to be born in the family of a devotee and having the blessings of a bona fide spiritual master. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Parikshit Maharaj had both opportunities. He was born in a family of such devotees as the Pandavas, and just to continue the dynasty of the Pandavas and show them special favor, the Lord specifically saved Maharaj Parikshit, who, later on, by the arrangement of the Lord, was cursed by the boy of a Brahmana and was able to get the association of such a spiritual master as Shukadeva Goswami. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that a fortunate person, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Lord Krishna, achieves the path of devotional service. This was perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. By way of being born in a family of devotees, he automatically came in touch with Krishna, and after being so contacted, he constantly remembered him. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development of devotional service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord with perfect knowledge in self-realization, and by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate his chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna as a matter of course. Otareya Satim Vyadhat. Otareya means the son of Uttara. Satim, chaste and existing. So, there's different ways of looking at the events of the life of a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit. He gets a lot of attention in the first canto, several chapters dedicated to describing his being protected, his birth, and what the sages had to say about his character, just from his horoscope, and his confronting the personality of Kali, and all of that exchange. And then, of course, this event of being cursed by the sage, the son of the sage. And the way that Prabhupada has explained it is that being cursed by the son of a sage was Krishna's arrangement so that he could hear Shukadeva Goswami The Lord specifically saved Maharaj Parikshit in the womb, who later on, by the arrangement of the Lord, was cursed by the boy of a Brahmana and was able to get the association of such a spiritual master as Shukadeva Goswami. Now, of course, arrangements to meet Shukadeva Goswami could have been made any number of different ways. The choice made by Krishna was pretty dramatic. It's a nice drama. Acting inappropriately, that was also induced by Krishna. The cursing, that was induced by Krishna. The arrival of Shukadeva Goswami, that was induced by Krishna. So Krishna is very capable of doing many things with one thing. So one can look at it this way, one can look at it that way, or the other way. It's not if this way is right, then the other ways can't be right. There's multiple ways to look at something. So the emphasis here is Shukadev Goswami coming was to finish the Maharaj Parikshit's business. Finishing his business means he was prepared, after hearing from Shukadev, to fix his mind completely upon the personality of Godhead. Now, this is Canto 2, and there's a whole bunch more coming up. But having the essential question being asked by Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami's giving his answer, he is already a great devotee, and now he's becoming a greater devotee, or further concentration upon the personality of Godhead. Nice way to explain this, referring back to a verse in this chapter, Kama Sarva Kamova, etc. Would Prabhupada make reference to this? Oh, here we go. When Maharaj Parikshit further heard from Shukadev Goswami that one should worship the Lord only and no one else, even though full of all desires or desire less, his natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. Why would affection for Krishna be strengthened by hearing that? One of the ways, there's many ways of looking at anything. One of the ways is, supposing someone has no desire. Supposing someone has all desire. Krishna is merciful for the one that has all desire. Krishna is merciful for one whose desire less. And he's benevolent to all. Just like the blazing hot sun. It's been hot here for a while. It looks like it's going to stay hot for a while. Sun is blazing hot. It's the same sun that's blazing hot is sometimes it's winter. Sometimes it's summer. Sometimes, but the sun is benedictory, and even with the cycle of the seasons, it provides variegatedness. Of course, obviously in climate, rainy season, summer season. We don't have a rainy season in America, but some parts, tropical places, have rainy season. And so with it's the same sun, but through different phases of time and cyclical feature of time, the sun is giving benefit to everyone. Manifest differently at different times, different persons in different circumstances experiencing that benefit in different ways at different times. The point is, Krishna is all merciful for those who are desire less and those who have all desires. Somehow contacting Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada had full faith in that principle. And therefore, very bravely and very expertly, he presented the science of Krishna to everyone. Just a little sharing on that particular point. During the national holiday in China, we have our 4th of July, Independence Day. China has theirs, national holiday. It commemorates when Mao took over from the previous rulers. And the Communist Party was formed and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So that's a big celebration for them. And for 7 days, people don't go to work. 7 days. So it's a good time to have seminars where, many topics can be discussed in a deep way. So that I'm in the midst of preparing for Light of the Bhagavat, which was an attempt in 1960 for Srila Prabhupada to reach the people of Japan, or at least that was where this conference was going to be held. The Asian or East Asian people, Prabhupada estimated, they like to understand things through nature. So I'm going through it very carefully, and the points that Prabhupada makes are not different than the points that he always makes. But it's done in a manner that suits the audience. And he wanted, it didn't happen, but Tamal Krishna Raj made it happen so many years later, that illustrations would be accompanying each one of the verses. So it's chapter 20 of Canto 10. It's the rainy season. So it's, the effects of the rainy season. The effects of the rainy season, just like the effects of the sun, just like the effects of Krishna. And it's very nice. He likens the rainy season to so many things, where those in the dark age of Kali, life becomes stifled, and the rainy season, it comes after the hot summer, and where vegetation and life becomes shrunken. But when the rainy season comes, it again flourishes, and people in the agricultural world, they like it. So it's likened to, Prabhupada makes an appeal for sages and saints from all different backgrounds to make themselves available to the people in this dark age of Kali to awaken their understanding of the Supreme, the cause of all causes, etc., etc., etc. And it's very concise. We have these longer purports that the commentary for each of the verses is really short, 2 paragraphs, 2 short paragraphs, not elaborating, but making his points and making his points. His capacity as a writer was fantastic, of course, empowered by Krishna to do. And he made the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the bigger picture of Srimad Bhagavatam, readily understandable just in terms of describing seasons. people in modern life are very disconnected with nature because of the lifestyle that we have developed for ourselves. And to understand things through nature is kind of different. Not so much, there are certainly persons who are nature lovers, or people who are more in contact with lessons that life teaches through nature, or the experiences of life through nature. And Prabhupada understood that part of the world, the culture is like that. So anyway, just reading that little section helped me appreciate Prabhupada's writing. And he's writing that Shukadev Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit, hearing from Shukadev Goswami the merciful nature of Krishna, whether one is desireless or has no desires, that enthused him, enlivened him. His natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. And the whole purpose overall, of course, people of this world are very different. Within the same culture, they're very different. What to speak of one culture to another culture, they're very different. But the spiritual principles are universal. And by hearing the whole idea of the Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada is writing, is drawing one's attention to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from any angle, from any direction, that's what the Bhagavatam does. And as a faithful follower of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada does. And his audience is the world. And it's, the perspective is the audience of the world is largely covered. Using his phrase, infected by the modes of nature, contaminated by that infection of the modes of nature, and therefore in a diseased state. So what's the remedy? I mean, the cause is that free will choice brought them into that situation. What's the remedy? And it's Harikatha. From different angles. That's what the Bhagavatam is doing. Was Maharaj Parikshit a pure devotee before he heard Srimad Bhagavatam? Or did he become a pure devotee by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? Going back to an earlier verse in this chapter, in chapter 3, the word satam is used to describe both Shukadev and Maharaj Parikshit. And the indication is from the very birth, they were pure devotees, extremely exceptional pure devotees. For different reasons, for Shukadev also. Anyway, Maharaj Parikshit hearing from, seeing the personality of Godhead, being attracted to the personality of Godhead from the very outset of his, even before being born. Shukadev Goswami being in this Brahman realized position even within the womb, and then coming out because of his attraction for Krishna and being promised from Krishna to be protected. In other words, pure devotees from the beginning. And there is a sense that by the association of Shukadeva Goswami, at that stage of perfection became more perfect. It's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Sometimes devotees get confused. I'm mentioning this because sometimes devotees get confused. Is a pure devotee, and then they become a pure devotee? Like the description of, we just recently came across this with Grandfather Bhishma. He was a pure devotee. And when Krishna came, when he's lying on the bed of arrows, all of his impurity became washed away. But he was already pure. So what's the impurity? It's not material contamination. It's what comes as a result for Grandfather Bhishma of being in the royal family and a politician and a statesman and having to do with so many different things, worldly things. And the concentration, Krishna coming and his mind becoming fully concentrated on Krishna, washed away, it made him more perfect. Our teaching is that the practice of devotional service, sadhana, the practice of devotional service, has stages. And it says the principle is the Bhagavad Gita principle: engage in prescribed duty and always think of Krishna. Maya sakta manakta yogam yunjan vadashraya. So we engage in prescribed duty and we think of Krishna, and that's the sadhana. And then the sadhya has its progressive stages also. So that's what's happening with, through Prabhupada's explanation in the purport, with Maharaj Parikshit. Krishna's making an arrangement for the pure devotee Maharaj Parikshit to have Shukadeva Goswami's association so that he can go even further in the platform of pure devotion. By way of being born in a family of devotees, Maharaj Parikshit automatically came in touch with Krishna, and after being so contacted, he constantly remembered him. That's Krishna consciousness. That's a pure devotee. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development in devotional service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord with perfect knowledge and self-realization. And by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate his chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna as a matter of course. So, perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu writes, Krishna Das Kaviraj writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that in Sanatana Goswami's instructions, in Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, he describes the stages of evolution or elevation of spiritual consciousness and describes the principle that awakens Krishna consciousness's association with sadhus. He gives many verses. And then he says, even in the stage of perfection, sadhu sangha is essential. Why would that be essential if one's already at the stage of perfection? At the stage of perfection, sadhu sangha is essential. What's the shape of that if someone's living in solitude? The shape of that is the constant remembrance and the hearing. How can we associate with elevated persons who are not physically present? How can a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, in his physical absence, be in his constant association? Or how can one get association of Rupa Goswami, because we're Rupanugas, because he can't be physically present? Or we don't have the qualification to see his presence. So how to apply this? So there's a teaching, of course, through sound is made possible, but physical association is ideal. And when there's physical association, there's opportunity for varieties of service by physical association. Yet, the most important part is hearing. And then, without physical association, Prabhupada's no longer physically on the planet. Then, by hearing, one can associate by hearing. And one can associate with Rupa Goswami by hearing, etc., etc., etc. Here's a little Prabhupada story, just to illustrate this. Vrindavan, morning walk. For some reason, there were not so many devotees that were present on that morning walk. I was one. And on the way coming back after the walk, approaching the Krishna Balaram temple, there was a loud kirtan to receive Prabhupada coming back. And hearing the kirtan, Prabhupada looked around and said, "Where are all the devotees?" And someone said, "They're at the temple having kirtan, waiting your arrival, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, not the exact words, but here in this, during this morning walk, there are very few devotees. Where are the devotees? Just re-clarified his statement. And then stopped and said, when there's opportunity to have physical association of the spiritual master, one should seek that opportunity. Vapu. But when there's Vapu, the most important part is Vani. And without the physical association, then there's Vani. One can associate through Vani. I mean, it was a simple point. It started with, where are all the devotees? Who's taking advantage of that association? Now, through modern technology, here's a camera and there's people presumably virtually live streaming, participating. And that's through sound. And then people have other duties at other time zones and things, so they can hear in the recordings. And that's also Vani, or association. But so the technology enables us to have Vani in so many different ways, which, that's a good use of technology. Imagine having a video of Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit having their conversation, hearing their voices and facial expressions and everything. Or Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita, or Krishna speaking to Uddhava, or anything. It's available in a different medium, in the recording. Just heard Prabhupada say like this: Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Vyasa's disciple, Sanjaya, was able to hear it. And I think Prabhupada said record it. And then Vyas took that recording and wrote it.
That's what I feel. It's like there was some technology during the time, like for example in Namisha, when thousands of sages are sitting, we can't expect them to hear the equally like what Parikshit Maharaj is hearing.
So how did it work? I mean, we don't understand how it worked, but somehow it worked. So there's modern technology that's looks like it looks like, and there's higher technology that looks like it looks like. And the principles were known and utilized by people whose consciousness was refined. And you know, in any case, the principle is the benefit is Harikatha, purifying. And that's what Srimad Bhagavatam is. And the Harikatha has this, as it's expressed, it has the effect of immersing consciousness in Hari, Krishna. But I like this point that he's a pure devotee and he became further benefited. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development in devotional service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami. Now it's interesting. Maharaj Parikshit, I'd like you to meet Shukadeva Goswami. That's kind of a formal introduction, and the way that it happened was another not so formal introduction. But he introduced the king to Shukadeva Goswami. And by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate his chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna as a matter of course. Now previously he was immersed in thought of Krishna. Now it's further. This hearing is like Lord Chaitanya said to Sanatana Swami, it's even in the stage of perfection. It's essential. Sadhu Sangha is essential. Hearing from sadhus is essential. Hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. Chanting the holy name is essential. Residing in a sacred place, essential. And if we can't physically reside in a sacred place, and there's lots of people that don't, not lots of devotees of the Lord all over the world that don't, try to visit, and otherwise within the mind. This is Rupa Goswami's writings. You hanker for that and think of the residents in that sacred place. So, some thoughts on this morning's verse. See if there's some discussion.
When we're in Krishna consciousness and we're sort of cruising, how do we go from perfect to more perfect to most perfect?
Cruising? Like complacent? If there's online people, I'll just repeat the question. We don't have another microphone, right? We should get a portable microphone. Huh? Okay. Well, at the temple they'll have, right? proportionate to one's eagerness to become more firmly, strongly, consciously situated in our relationship with Krishna. That the process doesn't change, but the application becomes more, when the application becomes more focused and enthusiastic to make that connection stronger than when the progression goes forward. It's the complacency or the status quo kind of practice makes for stagnancy. And when some persons may just accept that's what spiritual life is. It's living a good life and being clean and honest, and I follow the vidhis and avoid the nishedas. But to go further, then it's the devotional mood needs to become strengthened. Understanding the purpose and applying oneself according to the purpose with greater enthusiasm. Anything? Yeah. What's that?
The verse the desire, the one who has desires, the one who doesn't have desires, if he worships Krishna.
Yes.
That's pretty much everyone. It applies only to the one who worships.
The purification. Well, there are three categories, and that's everyone in the world. But not everyone in the world is a worshiper of Krishna. The verse specifically, unto those who, it gives these three categories. Now, philosophically, or more foundationally, living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels. And those that have all desires, largely, they're just, they're forgetful of Krishna, so they're not in the devotional mode. But inherent, intrinsic, is who they really are. And they're just looking elsewhere. So your question specifically, Krishna is kind to everyone, like Prabhupada's example, a loving father will be kind. Feel kindly or kindness towards the family members. Whether they're more cooperative or less cooperative, a loving father will have affection for all children. So Krishna has that affection, but how does one relate to it, have regard for that, depends on the individual. So I don't know does that address what you're asking? I see. Yeah. I mean, he gives them what they want. And, they want, and he's saying, this isn't wholesome. I want. All right. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.